many companions long ago, they used to travel for long distances to meet with another companion. And that was because they knew that that companion heard a hadith, a saying from the Prophet ﷺ that they did not hear. So they wanted to hear it. So they used to travel long distances to meet with that companion who heard the saying, the hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. And at that time, they did not have cars. So they used to travel these long distances because they knew of the importance of listening to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So one really ought to give much attention, due attention to learning about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, why is that? One might wonder, why is that? Because from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, one can learn a lot of things. One can learn the rules of the religion, one can learn wisdoms, and one can know how the Prophet ﷺ lived, so that one can imitate the lifestyle of the Prophet ﷺ, so that one can be a true follower of this person who is the best of mankind. Not just of mankind, but the person who is the best of all the creation of Allah. There are so many creations, and the best of them all is Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. So the one who listens to the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salam, let him remember the merit of this person. Let him remember that this is the one who is better than all other creations. This is the greatest leader. This is the person whom we love and yearn for seeing. This is the person whom we love the most. And one should really raise his children on loving the Prophet alayhi salam. Teaching one's children to love the Prophet alayhi salam more than they love their parents, because truly, this is how the Muslim should be. The Muslim should really love the Prophet ﷺ more than he loves his parents, more than he loves his children. So then one teaches his children to have that love for the Prophet. And when one keeps that in mind, then inshallah, this feeling in his heart would lead him to follow the Prophet ﷺ, to imitate the Prophet ﷺ in one's actions, in one's sayings, in one's lifestyle. Whether that is by using the siwak, for example, before praying, because this is what the Prophet ﷺ did and taught his nation to do, whether it is by imitating the Prophet and eating with the right hand, and remembering when the person is doing these things, the sincere intention in one's heart in order to gain reward. So there is definitely great wisdom and benefit by listening to the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salam. So inshallah, in every session, we will learn one hadith of the Prophet alayhi salam, and we will all memorize it, and inshallah, we will abide by it. So the hadith that we will, inshallah, learn today before we start our lesson in the Bahjah is a hadith that I sent you in the group probably 2 days ago. The Prophet alayhi salam said, نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. What does that mean? The Prophet alayhi salam mentioned in this hadith that there are 2 endowments. And he stated that these are ni'mah, these are endowments from Allah. And he said that there are these 2 endowments that many people do not pay due attention to. Many people do not use wisely, even though there are 2 great endowments. But unfortunately, many people do not really care much about these endowments. They don't use them wisely. What are these endowments? What are these 2 endowments that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this hadith? The first one he mentioned is health. one's health, the person's health. And many of those who have some ailment, some disease, some sickness, many of them, you will hear them saying that if I only were able to go up the stairs, or if only I were able to bend down and carry something, because their health does not enable them to do that anymore. So now they know what an endowment that is to be healthy. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying in the hadith that many people do not pay due attention to this endowment. When they lose it, then they start saying, oh, I wish when I still was healthy that I did so and so. So while the person is in a healthy state, let him use that health. Because usually, as we know, the older the person gets, usually his health is not getting better, but rather the opposite. So one does not say, I'm going to wait another year and then I will do more acts of obedience. No, because we don't know from another year from now whether we will be as healthy as we are today. Even if today we are not in our top shape, we still have some disease, but still we say, Alhamdulillah, there are people who have a more difficult situation. So the person really should always remember that and thank Allah for the health that he has. Even if it is not as great as the health of other people, yet he still has a lot that he should be thankful for. So this is one of the endowments that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that many people do not pay due attention to it. What is the other endowment that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned? He said, and having free time. Also, this is an endowment. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that in the hadith. He said it's a ni'mah to have free time. And it really surprises me when I hear people saying that I am bored. It amazes me in a way that how could you be bored when there are so many things that need to be done? So the person really needs to use his time and what is of benefit. Use his time and what is of benefit for the hereafter. Because right now you have this time, later on you might not have it. You might become busy with other things in life, be it family members, be it work, maybe you need to have 2 jobs, etc. So use your time that you have wisely, because really that time that passes, that's it, it's gone. You're not going to have it back. One of the scholars said that the person is like an amount, an amount that with time, it decreases, it gets less. And this is, he said, how the person is, that with time, this amount is less, it's getting less. And it is true. When you think about it, every day that passes from our life gets us closer to our time in this life being over, which is to death. So one should think about that and use his time wisely. And one does not say, well, when it comes to doing acts of obedience, one should not say, I don't have time. You do have time. You just need to know how to prioritize. You do what is better before you do what is good. So you put them in order and you see what is of more priority, what takes precedence over other things, and I do what is more important before I do what is important. So among the matters that take precedence, that need to be on top of my priority, are the obligations. It's an obligation. It's not something to compromise. It's not something to debate. This is an obligation that one has to do. If it's an obligation upon me, I have to do it. It's not negotiable. So if somebody comes to me telling me, oh, Shiraz, I need to tell you something important, it's not more important than me praying if the time of the prayer is short and I do not have much time. So that important thing will need to wait because I have something that is more important. So one prioritizes then. The obligations should be done. They are not something to consider whether to do or not. So when the person thinks about prioritizing, he knows this time that I have during my day, how do I spend it? What do I spend it on first? And then the rest comes. And when one does it, one will see that I do have time, because a lot of minutes, even hours, pass on things that are not obligatory. They pass from our day and they're not obligations. So why not spend this time in things that will benefit me in the hereafter? So I do my obligations, and then I still have time. Let me do more acts of obedience. So inshallah ta'ala, we will learn and we will teach what we are learning. Okay, so you learn a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salam, you go and teach it to your family members, to your friends, whether you send it a written text or you communicate it orally, you teach it with a sincere intention, seeking reward from Allah, to spread the true teachings, the teachings of the Prophet alayhi salam. So this is what the Prophet alayhi salam said in this hadith, that these are the two endowments. So inshallah, we will memorize the hadith and we will make better use of our time, particularly in this blessed month of Ramadan, which is really an opportunity. And the one of us does not know if he will be alive to live another Ramadan. So one seizes this opportunity while we have it now. When we think about the Ramadan of last year, maybe you remember some people who were with you who are not with us anymore because they passed away. So, and they most likely did not expect that they would not live for another Ramadan. And many of us of course, we do not know whether we will live for another Ramadan or not. So right now we have this opportunity. We are in this month, which is the best month of the year. So let us use it. Let us seize this opportunity